me to talk. Okay. And high hopes, dream big at any age. I'm
Doug,
six. Yeah.
Doug, I'd just like to interrupt you for a moment because I like to interrupt you because I know you very well, as do quite a few people on this platform, but there are some that don't know you. So I'd like to do a brief introduction. I say brief because if I were introducing you and telling all of the wonderful, giving you all the accolades that you richly deserve, I could take this whole session up as far as time goes. As most of you know, Doug Hunt is also known as Doug the Great. We sometimes say the greatest. He has been volunteering and assisting around Brantford for so many years. He is currently the Director of Fundraising, Marketing, and Volunteer Services at Participation Support Services, and we know it formerly as Participation House. He has set so many world records, it's hard to keep up with it. Usually with stilt walking, one of my favorites is with North Park having so many students, and I think it was 625 students up on stilts the one day. He has also been awarded has had many recognition over the time. He's received the Queen's Platinum Jubilee, the Queen's Golden Jubilee, the Queen's Diamond Jubilee. He's been the recipient of the Brantford Kiwanis Walter Zeller Fellowship Award. One of my favorites is the Brant Community Foundation Kindness Award. He also has been nominated not just once, but 3 times for Brantford Citizen of the Year, which he richly deserves. You see him out and about all the time. Our grandchildren know that we know a lot of people around Brantford and some famous ones, but to them, there's no one more famous than you, Doug. You have shown up at birthday parties as a surprise and just to the delight of all of these kids. One of the things that I like to say is I know a lot of people in high places, but no one as high as Doug. And the best part about all of this is I get to call him my friend. So sorry for interrupting, Doug, but now the floor is yours.
Thanks, Betty Jean. Hey, we're going to say stuff like that, interrupting me anytime. So, full disclosure, and some of you have seen me do presentations like at Provost in the past. This is my very first time of ever doing this kind of a presentation, a PowerPoint. And so we'll see how this goes. I want to thank Linda for approaching me first to be your speaker today and thinking maybe we should try a PowerPoint. So we'll see how this goes. My toughest problem is sitting down and talking. Whether it's on stilts or that, I like to be on my feet and move around, but I'll do my best. This first slide right here, and let me call them slides if that's okay, high hopes. Actually, that was my wife's idea many years ago when I started working on world records and we did presentations. So a lot of this PowerPoint that Linda and I worked on had to do with a lot of things Katie worked on so many years ago. We've just sort of updated. So yeah. And hopefully we learned something from this, and I can share some of my experiences and my achievements in spite of wrecking my knee and now being over 68 years of age. So family entertainer, Doug the Great. Hey, people ask me, why do you call yourself Doug the Great? And it wasn't my idea. I first started doing magic when I was a leader in training for the Parks Board with children that were physically challenged and developmentally delayed. In fact, one of those kids was my younger sister, Valerie. And so my parents, instead of going to work and getting a paid job, they asked if I would go with Valerie to Mohawk Park just so the big brother could be with her at a day camp. We lived out near Glen Morris. And so I started doing little magic shows for fun for the kids, and they gave me that name. And I'll tell you the truth, Everything I do today, I owe to my sister Val. Valerie, for my job, my career, for my entertainment, a lot has to do with my, so that was my inspiration and how I sort of move forward. So next slide is, I'm only 5'5". And I did a lot of magic shows after those day camp days. I got into being a magician and a juggler. And the reason I got into magic also is I had a speech impediment. And my dad, who was the very first golf pro at Northridge, couldn't believe his son was so shy. So he taught me how to juggle, and I got into doing some more magic. And I ended up doing a lot of events like the old time family picnic at Mohawk Park, some of you might remember. But I found people couldn't see me. And so that's how I got into stilt walking. I thought if I got on stilts, I'd be on stage all the time. In fact, the stilts were my claim to fame even back then. There wasn't a lot of stilt walkers around. In fact, I got jobs because of my stilts at Ontario Place on the weekends. I used to go up there. I worked at the Niagara Casino, not the Falls View, it wasn't built yet. Windsor Casino. And I was just saying, I worked at Markham Fair for years, and it was because I did so well on stilts. In fact, you can see that picture there. I've got a Mardi Gras sort of character there. So I have about 65 different outfits. So the stilts, even though I enjoyed magic and juggling, what got me the jobs and the big gigs working at like Ontario Place. I even worked for the Toronto Blue Jays when they were good. But anyways, so I've done a lot of things over the years. Now this picture is the day before I hurt my knee. That's my daughter, Megan. And she was a dancer. We took her to Mickey's Dance Connection. That's right next to St. John's College. And so I was like with a bunch of other dads, we'd go with our daughters to different events and everything. And then the next day of that picture was the year-end recital for Mickey's Dance Connection at the Sanderson Center. And we had a dad's dance. And that's where I hurt myself. I thought we'd have fun doing, hey, Nikki, you blow my mind. But I blew my knee that day, thinking I could do what my daughter could do, a Russian jump while a bunch of dads were dancing. And yeah, that was supposed to be my career-ending knee injury. So the Dr. Waitley told me when where my wife is now in long-term care, St. Joe's was a hospital. I remember going there with my injured knee, and Dr. Waitley, some of you might remember Dr. Waitley. I just ran into him again. He's back in Brantford. He looked at my knee, and then he came to me after, and not seeing my face, but only my knee in the morning after doing a scope. He said, "Are you Doug the Great?" I says, "Yeah." He says, "Well, I looked at your knee this morning. We got to change your name." I said, "What do you mean?" "Yeah, I looked at your knee. You got no ACL. You got this. We're not changing your name to Doug." So he was trying to tell me that's it. I don't think you can actually have a normal walk, a good gait, and I'm not sure about you getting back on stilts. So that was very depressing. And I'm just going to take a second here, Linda, explain something. I don't even think I explained to you. When I hurt myself, and it was like that was the end of my stilt walking career, that is the end of part of my life in my mind because I had done so well up to that point. Like I was saying earlier, working at the Ontario Place and CN Tower and some of the casinos and the fairs and festivals, I was depressed. But remember, I didn't think I explained this earlier. Some of you know, or most of you know, I also have a full-time career because of my sister working at Participation House, which is now called Participation Support Services. And the one day after I hurt, about a week after I hurt myself, damaged my knee. In fact, I have no ACL ligament. I'm missing muscle, and meniscus problems and everything. It's like a hollow shell there. I had crutches, and I couldn't straighten my leg out because in my accident, some of the muscle got into the joint of the knee joint, and I couldn't straighten my knee. So I was using crutches to get around. But I could still get up, have a shower. I could still drive my car and I still had a job. And I want you to remember that because when I went to Participation Support Services. If you know about the place, it's a home and organization that supports adults, most of them with cerebral palsy, spinal bifida, and paraplegia, and different types of disabilities. And a lot of these people depend on mobility equipment such as wheelchairs, walkers, and different things. And in some cases, can't talk and needs help with feeding and different things like that. And so when I walked into or stumbled into my office, before I did that, I ran into two residents, Paul and David, who were coming down the hallway in their motorized wheelchairs at full speed with their eyes closed. They were playing chicken, and they were laughing and everything until they saw me. And then all of a sudden, the laughter stopped and they stared at me and they went away. And it wasn't until I got into my office, it hit me like a bolt of lightning. Those two guys were feeling sorry for Doug the Great because they'd never seen me. I guess on my face, I looked depressed and upset. And they'd never seen me in that kind of position up to that. I was the recreation supervisor. And so we were always having fun together and going to like Blue Jay games. And they'd never seen me depressed and upset. And I didn't understand that until that moment that, geez, those 20 years I've been there, I hadn't learned anything until that moment. And learning from people that live a challenge every day. And this was just a small challenge compared to that. So I turned that right around. And so that's how I met Tom Rollins and Al Dalton Orthopedics, and Tom Rollins, my physio, about talking about, hey, not only am I going to get back on stilts, because we're going to do this for the residents, but we're going to I had a book, a Guinness Book of World Records, and I showed Tom, look at this. There's a guy in the States who was able to master stilts 40 feet, 9.5 inches high. I think we can beat. What do you think? So, that's where we came up. If you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. And so we had that attitude. And so that was the beginning of going after a Guinness World Record, was the injury, meeting the residents at Participation Support Services, and decided, hey, I got to stop moping around and crying. I told people, oh, I cried for a day. And if you talk to my wife, she says, no, he cried for 2 weeks. He was so upset. So I had to turn my life around. And so I learned now, understanding, being with people that live a challenge every day, there's a lot of qualities you can learn from. And that's where I got that attitude, like, let's turn this around, not only get back on stilts, but let's get on the tallest stilts. So the next slide would be surrounding yourself with the right people, surround yourself with experts. I couldn't do it alone. And everything in life, no matter what you're doing, you need a good team. And so I've done a lot of talks at high schools in careers, grade 10 students. And I always tell them, who's your friends? Who do you hang out with? Are there people that support you, or people that try to bring you down? And so if you're going to be successful, you need to surround yourself with success. And that's how we looked at this with Tom Rollins, my physio, and Al Dalton, the guy who set me up with a knee brace. Because remember, you can see the knee brace on my knee there. Those people there were our first team for our first attempt at the record, and they had all different skills. There's a doctor in there, there's a physiotherapist in there, there's an engineer who engineered the stilts in there, my physio. The guy that came up with carbon fiber stilts, his sailboat mast, he's in there. So you need Todd Pipes in there for safety. Yeah, those were the merry men. These are the people recruited. Let me just stop you there. There was a few people that I approached that I thought would be a great support. And they more or less told me I was an idiot. They says, what are you talking about? You have no ACL. You're wearing a knee brace. You're like 40. And you don't look like you're in that great a shape. You're not a Las Vegas stunt guy. Where do you get off thinking you can go after and be a Guinness World Record holder? So there was a couple of those people that sort of talked in that way. They didn't get on the team. So that's why I tell students, So, and they later on in life didn't achieve a Guinness World Record. So you don't need that kind of naysayers. You need to surround yourself with positive thinking, like all of you, and looking at the glass half full, not half empty. So that's the beginning. And a lot of people I approached, they were excited, whatever it took. They wanted to be part of the team because a lot of this understanding, I got to back up a bit, wasn't just to get me back on stilts. It was because of my experience working with the guys at Participation, I'll say Participation House, that were feeling sorry for me. So the whole idea of this was to bring positive awareness and much needed funds to participation support services and the people we share. So when you come from that angle, what you're proposing and what your challenge is, it's not hard to get people in this community on board. So I just wanted to say that. So that's our best stilt team. Teamwork makes the dream work. That's our team for the first attempt. You'll see we're at front of Oaks Welding. That was on the front cover of the Expositor the day before our first attempt at the Civic Center. That's the stilt, one of the stilts. It was made of aluminum, donated by a company in Hunter Steel, I think it was, or a company in Brantford, and Oaks Welding put it together. You can't see because it's a photo of the newspaper, but Katie and I are sort of in the center and we can hardly reach the stilts. That's how short we are with the rest of the team holding those stilts up. Let me say a thing about those stilts. Remember, it was a fundraiser. We didn't have money. Everything had to be donated. So we didn't use the best product. We used aluminum. And we found that that's the wrong product. It bent so easily. In fact, looking at that stilt we're holding up, imagine it laying on the ground and you going to the middle and lifting up on the middle of that stilt, that leg, that pole. Believe it or not, when I did that, the two ends were still touching the ground when I pulled it up to my waist. That's how bendable it was. So maybe not the right tools, but we made a commitment. We were going to do it. Bob Phillips, Kuhn Engineering, was a little concerned because he never engineered something that long to hold up a human. But hey, we went after it. So here we are in the next slide. What's that, slide 6? Yeah. Going after it on the stilts. That gives you some idea of height. You can see the Civic Center was doing, I think we were doing something for, it was a winter car. No, it wasn't. I can't remember if it was Sesquicentennial. I think it was Sesquicentennial. But anyways, I was up there 7 hours trying to figure out how to move these poles forward. They were bending so much. This was not the first attempt. There was a few attempts before that, but you can see looking down those poles, the stars. Bob Phillips put them on after we were failing to try and, he called it bridging, like the San Francisco Bridge, to stabilize the poles, to reinforce them. All they did was added weight. And what happened, each pole weighed 125 pounds each. And even though I was a lot younger there, I was very frustrated and I had so many people cheering me on and was behind this. There was a lot going on trying to achieve it. And on the picture on the right shows you the results. I was just exhausted trying to do something with it. Nevertheless, where are we now? Next one. The next slide. Nevertheless, it was a big celebration after we failed. And that's where I came up with failing or falling forward. We were interviewed by CKCO TV, young lady, and man, she was tough. She nailed me. When we got down, she came to me and she interviewed me and she says, Doug, You said you're going to do, at that point, you had to do for Guinness to qualify for verification to achieve 25 forward steps unassisted. And actually, I got a couple of backward steps in. My wife phoned Guinness, says, "Hey, my husband can do it backwards." They said, "No, you got to do it forward." And I didn't hardly get any steps. And so this lady interviewing me says, "You're a failure. You didn't get any steps forward." So I had to straighten this lady out, saying, "Listen, you forgot. You didn't hear me when our first interview what this whole thing was about. It was about participation support services. It was about supporting the residents. We brought in during that day over $20,000 in proceeds for our organization because we didn't spend any money. Everything was donated. If you looked at all the donations, it'd be more than that. But as far as hard cash, we brought in that much money for the residents, and we brought more awareness in our city of who we are and what we are doing, and handed out more brochures and what we are trying to achieve for our guys. I told her it was a huge success. I says, where you're saying we failed is I guess we didn't qualify for a Guinness record, but we didn't say we're finished. We are still going to continue on, and we'd already set a date in the summer, and the date would have been sesquicentennial, back at the Civic Center, and we're going to go at it again. So we're not finished. So with that point, I just want to point out to everybody, you're never a failure if you don't give up. So if you keep trying, you're a success. The only time you're a failure is when you put your hands up in the air and you walk the other way and say, okay, I'm never doing that again. So that's failing. Our whole team, and you can see them there, how excited they were that we had accomplished a lot at that point. Oh, getting the record, that gives us another chance. And guess what, gang? Gave us another chance to make more money for participation support services. Now, if that's not looking at the glass half full, I don't know what is. So we were all very positive. And again, if you look at the team members there, you can see how excited they were. They were the right people on the team. And I got to say one more thing about team and people. And you may know this in life. Remember, I was telling you some people said I was crazy to do this and they didn't get on the team. I have to tell you the truth. That day, I did lose a couple of people because some people are great when you're winning and they're the best support, but when you lose, they disappear. And again, uh, what makes a winner, what makes a champion is someone who can deal with failure in a way that it's a step, it's progress, it's a way of achievement and learning from it. So, yeah, we did lose a couple of people. And in the long run, I guess I didn't need them in anyway. So just keep that in mind. But most of the people that were there, they were all excited for us to go after it again. So then what's the next slide there, Linda? Um, we, I, Linda, this is okay. I made a mistake because we sort of, we're saying turning back to 2008. But anyways, let's talk about this. It's we're out of time whack, but it's okay. During all these times of breaking a Guinness World Record, um, I was still doing presentations at high schools and at North Park one day doing a talk about participation support services. That was my job, awareness. Um, we talked about my Guinness World Record, and a couple of students asked, "What's it like to be a Guinness World Record holder?" And it made me think, oh, it's hard to share. It's hard to explain. It's a thing you need to do. And so I decided at that moment, let's get a lot of people breaking a Guinness World Record on stilts. And so I knew there was a record done. I think it was about 500 people had a record for simultaneous, most people walking on stilts at the same time. And I'm believing it was Cirque du Soleil or a group like that. And I thought, I think we can do this. And so I talked to that class, the leadership class, about taking this on as a project. And by golly, they did. We spent like a year working on this at the North Park Collegiate. a few months before the attempt, they would during I guess their gym class, they would send students out to part of myself and a few of our team members, and we had these stilts made up at the Dunn Building with Marty Chappell. And you can see them. Some of them are hockey sticks that we got from Walter Gretzky, and they only had to be 12 inches high to qualify for a record of most people on stilts. And you could have used hold-on ones that you might have used during a kid. Then you can jump off. But I found if you use the hold-on stilts, people, if you stumble a bit, you'll step off and then you're disqualified. So my idea is to do it old school and tape them right on. So we had 1,000 rolls of Renfrew hockey tape donated. We had tried a couple of years, I think in 1993, 94. I'm trying to think of the years we attempted at this, I think it was at Cockshutt Park on Ring Road there at the Cockshutt Park. And we only could get about inviting people on, it was during Canada Day. You can see the Canada Day t-shirts. We could only get over 300 people and we needed more than 500. So you can see we needed 600 and we didn't get there. But we did. So that was a couple of times, but getting back to North Park Collegiate, we actually did break the record in 2008 of 620. BJ was talking about earlier at their track. We did honestly break the record, 625 people, setting a new record. It is in one of the books of breaking that record. I think there's a picture later. The next picture, I think, shows you that. Yeah, there we are. That's at North Park. There I am on my tall stilts and everybody falling. Look at the crowd. So every one of those students, and they weren't just from North Park Collegiate. We had students from public schools. We had students from BCI, Paris, St. John's joining in to get that number up. And you can see they're all walking on stilts. And some of them, you had to walk 100 meters. But in order to do this, to get everybody on stilts, some of them had to walk 300 meters to cross the 100-meter start line and the finish 100 meters. So, and it says three times the charm. Yeah. So we had failed a couple of times on Canada Days. And then finally, North Park Collegiate, working with a high school and having that whole high school behind us, we were able to bring a lot of people together to accomplish that. Okay. Okay, here we are. So remember, I had broke a record in 1998, I believe. Yeah, I broke a record 1998. That was my first record. It was at Tom Pate's in the Brentwood silo. It was 80 foot high. We put scaffolding in there. And I was able to get, believe it or not, in a silo. You think, how do you get any steps in? Well, the silo is like 40 feet across or longer. It's a huge building. It only doesn't look that wide across because they're so tall, these silos. We had put a concrete floor. We got scaffolding donated. And Tom Rollins, who's I found out later is afraid of heights. And I used to crawl up there and get on these poles. I told you earlier in this PowerPoint that the aluminum was no good. And then sometimes, Zig Ziglar, we'll get to one of his quotes. If you keep doing the same thing, you'll get the same results. We had Bob Phillips found a contact in Stony Creek who makes catamarans, ocean-going catamarans. And he had the molds for sailboat masts. And then we went to Montreal and got carbon fiber donated. And so we made carbon fiber sailboat masts, 4 of them, to get me up to the height that we needed. So there's more to that than that. I won't get into it. But the picture on the right is me on carbon fiber sailboat mast. And the picture on the left is the opening of the brand new tourism center, which is now closed 20 years later. But that's the opening day of the tourism center. Who would have known there would be Costco next door? But that's the opening of the tourism center, and that's me on the right, breaking the record again after doing it in a silo back in 1998. We did it again in 2002. The reason for that is Dave and some of you remember the late Susan Sager was in charge or the manager of the tourism center, and she was getting a lot of grief about the positioning of it, the cost of it, a lot of different things. And so she approached me about maybe at their opening ceremonies to bring some positivity and some fun to it. And so they know where the heck the thing is by having this guy up on 50-foot 9-inch poles. That's how high I was at the time to break the record. So that went in the book. So yeah, sailing towards the new Guinness record. There they are there. I got my name on them, so we know they're there, being ready to be looking at hanging them up at the Civic Center. After the tourism center closed, I didn't know what happened to the stilts, and I got a call. Yeah, we moved them to the Civic Center. And if you ever been, not the Civic Center, I'm sorry, the Wayne Gretzky Sports Center. That's the Wayne Gretzky Sports Center, and you can see that's right in front of the Sports Hall of Recognition. I tell everybody if they want to see the stilts, if they want to see Wayne Gretzky's trophies and that, you got to walk under my stills. So, you know, the quote there from Zig Ziglar. Yeah, we had a lot of challenges, but as Zig Ziglar said, you know, you just got to face them, move forward, surround yourself with the right people. If you fail forward, and you have to have the right tools. When I was failing on the aluminum poles back in '98, a guy by the name of Dave Van Alslander came say, "Hey, to Bob Phillips, why have you got dug on aluminum? That's no good. You should have carbon fiber or something." And Bob Phillips says that they're going to weigh like uh, the uh, the carbon fiber would be perfect, but it's going to cost like $11,000. So when I got down at the Civic Center, one of those past pictures, when I got down, Dave gave me a check for $11,000. If we hadn't been failing, I tell kids, if we hadn't been failing, we wouldn't have succeeded. So sometimes you have to face that challenge, even though there's a lot of doubts. You just got to get up and give it a try, and good things will happen. In that instance, we got the money donated because he could see what a great team we were, and we were going to fail forward. And one way we're going to get this, and he wanted to be part of the success by getting us the right materials and the right tools. So what comes next slide? Yes, huge with us on how this all came together and all the random pieces coming together, wonderful in different ways and different people with different skills. Um, it's hard to explain all the ins and outs on how we got there. All I gotta say, we were all always positive, and if any one of us got down, the other one picked us up, and we had the right team, and we were a bit pig-headed about going after this and making this happen. Yeah, the my record got beaten a few times, and that was sad for me. Not that someone beat me, but we had put so much effort into it. I I I wasn't thrilled with Guinness on how they changed the rules over time. So I don't know if earlier I was telling you we had to get 25 forward steps, and we failed a couple of times at the Civic Center. We failed many times in the silo trying to get 25 steps. Guess what? We got 10 easily now and then, but 25s, think of 25, just take a few steps now. That's a long way on 5-story stilts. We finally figured it out, and we did it in the silo, and then we did it outside in 2002. 29 steps back in 2002. That was 2002. I'm trying to think of the September 14th. So then all of a sudden, Guinness World Records changes that to 10 steps. What? So all of a sudden, my record started falling to a guy in China, a guy in Australia. This last one, the guy in the United States recently. And so I got a hold of Guinness. What's up? Like it was 25 steps. You've changed the rules on us. And now I'm like in my 60s. What are you doing to me? And he says, well, we thought it was too dangerous and we thought we'd make it easier. You don't do that. But anyways, I was sitting with Dave Levac at a Starbucks talking about this. And he said, stop your crying. We are going to get back up on the stilts and take it back. And I looked at Dave Levac and the first thing I said, we? So, but that was the beginning. Dave was involved sometime in the other attempts and a big support in different ways. So he became our team leader. And we had to do it again. We put the whole, we had some new members. We had some of the original members. We had the silo. We had to get new scaffolding. We had to do new cranes. And this time it was going to be back at the Wayne Gretzky Sports Center. It was during the 10th anniversary of the rebuild and the retrofit of the new rinks and everything. And Lori Dawn and the city asked if we wanted to get back on the stilts and break it again. And this is, you bet, let's get back. I'm sure we can do it. There is a technique, but we're going to need to practice and figure this out. So that was, you're never too old. Yeah, I was 67 at the time. And that was at the back of my mind, but I thought, it's only 10 steps. I'll do 25 anyways. Yeah, back on the saddle again. I covered some of that. I think, and we all agree, and that's why I'm talking to you guys. That's just a number. And that's up to you. What you have to. I was talking earlier about my fitness and my endurance and how you deal with that, and then my maturity and what I've learned, and you put that together. I think I'm better now than I was 25 years ago. Believe it or not, more capable, more. I streamlined a lot of things, and so I don't think there was a doubt in my mind or Dave's mind or some of the other team members' minds that we can go and accomplish this again. So, oh, here was the big challenge, though.
Doug, could I jump in for 2-6?
Yes, please.
Yeah, could we possibly get it over with in a couple of minutes?
Yeah, this is it then.
All right.
We can. Yeah, this will work. So let me just finish off by saying that we're still jumping through hoops. The biggest challenge now, and it'll be hard for someone to beat our record, is all the insurance I had to take working at heights. I had to get a license to be up that high. We had to get different kinds of insurance. A lot of the crane companies didn't want to get involved because everybody's trying to cover their rear end, and even the city had some problems. But again, we surrounded ourselves with the right people and the right energy that we were able to get through this. And so what I'm talking to you today is we accomplished the impossible again. I beat a young a guy that was in his 20s in the States. We took the record back. There's a couple of the crane operators and Dave Levac and Tom Rollins. And so partnerships, all for one, one for all. That's how we made this happen. The stilts are, there's our silo. Just go right through them, Linda. There's me at the accomplishing a record in hurricane force winds. And we did it. And let me say one thing. One of our team members is our MC right now, our official town crier, our famous town crier. One of the top town criers in the world was on our team, Dave McKee, that he was at every event that I did. And I appreciate that. And I have all his cries. And that was important. And to date, from this last attempt, remember I said it was about participation support services. Even on that day, we made $28,000. So with all these tilt attempts and working towards all this achievement, the biggest achievement was making probably over $100,000 for our organization. So I just want to say thank you for having me, and I think there might be a couple of questions, and I hope I did okay with the PowerPoint. You know me, I'm much better in live, jumping around and doing somersaults. Thank you so much, everyone.
Wow. Doug, that was wonderful. Okay, who's next? Oh, Sarah. Right.